I've always valued carving my own path, and living alone in the vibrant heart of the city, just a stone's throw from the book publishing company where I work as an editor, suits me perfectly. My parents are always just a phone call away, but the responsibility of city life falls solely on my shoulders. One Saturday, craving a break from the usual routine, I decided to trade in manuscripts for some fresh air and headed to my favorite park. It's a peaceful place where I often find solace, but that day, I was deep in thought, perhaps too deep. I didn't notice the bike lane ahead until a voice urgently warned, "Watch out." I stepped back just in time as a cyclist screeched to a halt right where I would have been a moment later. "Jesus, lady, are you trying to get yourself killed?" he exclaimed, catching his breath. He seemed annoyed, yet relieved there had been no collision. "Sorry, I wasn't paying attention," I apologized, suddenly aware of how close I'd come to disaster. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, no thanks to you," he replied, his tone harsh but tinged with concern. "You've got to watch where you're going." Acknowledging my mistake, I thanked him for his quick reflexes. After a moment, his posture relaxed slightly. "All right, no harm done, I guess, but maybe stay off the bike lane, huh?" "Deal," I smiled. "I'm Elizabeth, by the way." "Gregory," he said, extending his hand, which I shook. "So, Elizabeth, are you always this distracted, or is it just my lucky day?" "Only on Saturdays," I quipped, now feeling more comfortable. We chatted for a bit, and what started as an awkward encounter turned into a coffee date at a nearby cafe. Gregory worked in car sales, direct, blunt, but amusing. We talked about everything from books, which he rarely read, to cars, about which I knew very little. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and before long, we lost track of time. As we stood to leave, Gregory remarked, "I didn't think I'd end up spending my afternoon with the woman who nearly wrecked my bike. And I didn't think I'd be thanking the guy who nearly ran me over," I replied with a laugh. "Well, I guess we're both full of surprises," he said, smiling. "Can I see you again, Elizabeth? Maybe on a day when you're not in the path of moving vehicles?" I nodded, smiling back. "I think I can arrange that." Over the next few weeks, Gregory and I started seeing more of each other. What began as casual coffee dates and city walks evolved into late-night talks and dinners at our favorite spots. His straightforward manner, refreshingly genuine, drew me in more with each conversation. As our relationship deepened, it was only a matter of time before meeting his family came up. They lived in a spacious suburban home with a yard, and Gregory had mentioned his mother's traditional values, setting the stage for the next chapter in our unfolding story. I wasn't fully prepared for the reality of meeting his family. When we arrived at their home, it was clear that his parents had been eagerly anticipating our visit. His mother, a vivacious woman with a warm smile, greeted us at the door, embracing Gregory with a hearty hug before giving me a scrutinizing look that lingered a little too long. "Elizabeth, dear, it's so wonderful to finally meet you," she said, pulling me into a hug that felt more like sizing me up than welcoming me. "Gregory has told us so much about you." "Thanks, Mrs. Carroll. It's great to meet you too," I responded, trying to mirror her warmth. We settled into the living room, and Mrs. Carroll dove straight into conversation. "So, Elizabeth, Gregory tells us you work at a publishing house. That must be quite exciting, handling books all day." "It is, Mrs. Carroll. I love my job. It's rewarding to be part of the creative process," I explained, glancing at Gregory, hoping he might help navigate the conversation. "That's nice, dear," she said, "but you know, once you two settle down, you'll need to consider what's really important. Family should come first, and a woman's touch in the home is irreplaceable." Gregory's father, who had been quietly observing, nodded in agreement. "Absolutely. A stable home is the foundation of a good life, right, son?" he asked, looking at Gregory. Gregory shifted in his seat but managed to respond, "Yeah, Mom. Elizabeth's great at managing her time. She's pretty organized and sharp." "Of course, but managing a home is different," Mrs. Carroll countered, her gaze intense, as if she were trying to decode me. Feeling cornered, I cleared my throat. "I believe it's possible to balance both, Mrs. Carroll," I said. "I think a modern family can have two working parents. It's all about teamwork, isn't it?" Mrs. Carroll smiled, but her eyes didn't match the warmth of her expression. "Oh, dear, that's a nice thought, but in reality, children need their mother, and a house needs a woman's touch, not just a quick sweep." The conversation shifted away from that topic, but her words lingered in the air. Dinner was served, and it felt like navigating a minefield. Every compliment about the food seemed like a subtle hint for me to take notes. "Elizabeth, do you cook often, Mrs. Carroll asked as she served a perfectly roasted chicken. "Sometimes," I replied, trying to keep the conversation light. When I can. Work keeps me pretty busy." I tried to keep my tone light. Mrs. Carroll didn't seem to notice my subtle hesitation. "Oh, well, you'll find great satisfaction in keeping your family fed and your house in order," she said, passing the mashed potatoes with a smile that seemed to carry centuries of domestic wisdom. Gregory kicked me lightly under the table, a silent cue to stay calm. I smiled, taking a sip of my wine, maybe a little more than usual, reflecting on how this dinner felt more like an interview than a celebration. Despite the awkwardness from our first meeting, Gregory and I had continued seeing each other. A year later, we decided to marry. As they say, love fills you with hope. We planned a modest wedding, just family and close friends, nothing extravagant, the way we both wanted it. Our wedding day was a blur of smiles, flowers, and a small group of well-wishers at a local community hall. The space was quaintly decorated, and the air was filled with excitement, perhaps mostly from my nerves. The ceremony was short but heartfelt. We exchanged vows, rings, and a kiss that sealed our commitment, followed by applause that made everything feel just right. During the reception, as we enjoyed some appetizers, Gregory casually mentioned the idea of moving to a larger apartment. "I've been thinking about our discussion on needing more space," he said, nibbling on a celery stick. "There's this fantastic apartment that's spacious and beautifully laid out. It's actually near where I grew up." I glanced at him, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Near your parents?" "Yeah, it's convenient, and my parents would love to have us close by. Plus, my dad offered to help with the rent for a while." He said it with a hopeful smile, waiting for my reaction. I paused, my thoughts already jumping to the frequent visits from his mother that seemed inevitable. "That's very kind, but Gregory, you know how much I value our privacy. I don't want to feel dependent." He squeezed my hand gently. "I understand, Elizabeth, but financially, it's a wise decision. And having family close could be beneficial, especially if we start our own soon." I was skeptical, but agreed to think it over. "We can try, but if it gets overwhelming, we'll need to rethink." "Agreed," Gregory smiled, and we went back to enjoying the evening with our friends. Moving proved more challenging than we'd anticipated. The apartment was spacious, with a lovely park view, but it also meant a 55-minute commute to my job, which made my daily routine more exhausting. As expected, Gregory's parents visited often. His mother, in particular, didn't hold back when it came to helping with our new home. One day, she brought over elaborate floral curtains that didn't match our decor. "Elizabeth dear, these will brighten up the living room," she insisted, holding them up with a proud smile. "Thanks, Mrs. Carroll, but I like our current ones," I responded, trying to keep the conversation light. She didn't take the hint and proceeded to hang them up anyway. Each of her visits began to feel more like an inspection than a casual drop-in, making me uneasy in what should have been our sanctuary. Gregory tried to mediate, but our differing views on family closeness caused tension. As time went on, Gregory and I found ourselves debating our roles more often. He suggested, "Think about it, Elizabeth, you manage the home, and I handle the finances. It makes sense." He seemed convinced that this was the final word, but I countered, showing him our budget on my laptop. With the economy and job market uncertainties, having two incomes seemed safer and more practical. Gregory would sigh, clearly frustrated. Family dynamics are about more than just financial stability. Meanwhile, Mrs. Carroll practically made our apartment her second home, imposing her presence and opinions on us at every turn. "You're not planning to stay at that job forever, are you?" she'd ask, questioning my career choices the moment she arrived. I would defend my work, but it was becoming clear that Gregory's idea of a home was a lot more traditional than I had imagined. I tried to remain polite yet firm when Gregory's mother began critiquing my career. "It's something I'm passionate about," I explained, but she quickly shifted her focus to the cleanliness of our apartment, implying it could be better if I were home more. Frustrated, I shot back, "It's clean enough, we live here, not in a museum." My patience was wearing thin as our home began to feel less like ours and more like a battleground for clashing family ideals. But she had already moved on to her next critique, opening the refrigerator to survey my grocery choices with a frown. "This isn't enough for a healthy meal. And these leftovers, don't you cook fresh?" she asked, her disapproval written all over her face. I couldn't take it anymore and turned to Gregory. "Your mom is overstepping. and it's starting to stress me out. I can't meet her high expectations. Gregory, always the peacemaker, sighed. She's just trying to help. Elizabeth, maybe if you were home more, things wouldn't be so tense. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at work, I returned home to find Gregory visibly upset. This place is a mess, Elizabeth, he said, gesturing dismissively at the pasta I had quickly prepared. And this dinner, it's just not good enough. I was stretched thin. I'm doing my best, Gregory. I'm working full-time and managing the house, but it feels like it's never enough for you or your mom. His words stung. Well, maybe if you weren't trying to do both, you'd actually succeed at one. I froze, shocked. Are you saying I need to choose between my job and our home? If you can't handle both, then yes, he snapped. Maybe you should just be a housewife. Honestly, if things don't change, I don't see how this can work out. His words hit me like a cold wave. The man I loved, the man who had once been my partner, was giving me an ultimatum. The life I had built, my career, my independence, was slipping through my fingers, and I was powerless to stop it. The tension in our home was suffocating, thickening the air between us. In a desperate attempt to resolve the conflict, I made a drastic decision. I went to my boss and explained that I was resigning to become a full-time housewife. He was shocked and disappointed. He knew how much my career meant to me, but then he offered me a lifeline. You can still edit, just from home. It wasn't ideal, but it was a compromise I could accept without completely losing myself. I didn't tell Gregory about the remote work arrangement. Instead, I told him I had quit my job to focus on our home. His face lit up, and for a moment, I felt both warmth and heartbreak. That's great, Elizabeth. It'll be better for us. You'll see. I embraced my new role, managing the chores, cooking meals, and keeping everything in perfect order for when Gregory came home. But as soon as he left for work each morning, my laptop was open, and I was back at my editor's desk, working remotely. It was a precarious balance, juggling my secret work life with the domestic life Gregory believed I had fully embraced. I funneled the money I earned into a separate account, thinking it wise to have a financial cushion Gregory didn't know about, just in case. Living on Gregory's salary was his idea, and it strained our finances more than he realized. Just 2 months in, the cracks began to show. We're running low on everything, Gregory. We need to rethink our budget, I suggested one evening, hoping for a calm discussion. What are you talking about? You're just not managing our money right, he snapped, his frustration evident. You need to cut back on spending. His words were sharp, and they stung. I had been incredibly careful with our finances, always looking for sales and saving wherever possible. I hadn't treated myself in ages, yet it still felt like it was never enough. I retorted, my voice tight and wounded by his accusation. The next morning, as if summoned, Mrs. Carroll appeared at our doorstep. Gregory mentioned you're struggling with the budget. Let me show you the right way to shop, she announced, leaving no room for argument. The days that followed became a grueling lesson in extreme frugality. She took me from store to store, pointing out the cheapest products, many of questionable quality. These are what you should be buying, Elizabeth. Forget the fancy stuff, she instructed, treating me more like a misbehaving child than an adult. She even taught me how to dilute dish soap to make it last longer. Her gaze was piercing as she said, "You'll learn to manage with less. It's for the best." More to herself than to me. She scrutinized every receipt and questioned every purchase. Why this? There's no need for unnecessary trips when there's work to be done. She scolded upon finding a bus ticket among my things. It wasn't just about saving money anymore. It felt belittling, as though I was constantly being watched. The strict regimen imposed by Gregory, and enforced by his mother, felt suffocating. One afternoon, overwhelmed, I locked myself in our bedroom and called my mom. Tears edged my voice as I shared how Mrs. Carroll's stringent budgeting tips made it feel like I was living through the Great Depression. That's not normal, Elizabeth, my mom responded firmly. You and Gregory are supposed to be partners. It sounds like she's taking control, and Gregory should allow it. Relief washed over me as she spoke, but it was short-lived. Suddenly, the door burst open. Gregory stood there, fury etched across his face. Having overheard my conversation, without a word, he grabbed the phone from my hand and ended the call. A wife shouldn't be complaining about her husband and his mother like some traitor, he snapped coldly. I was stunned. Gregory, I was talking to my mom. I needed someone to talk to. I tried to explain, but he was unyielding. The argument escalated quickly, voices raised and words thrown that couldn't be taken back. In a fit of anger, Gregory stormed out, slamming the door behind him. He didn't return until past midnight, and when he did, the smell of alcohol hung heavily around him. His usual stern demeanor had given way to a sloppy, cruel drunkenness. I should have listened to my mom. She warned me about marrying someone like you, he slurred, his words cutting deep. I stood up, my anger rising. Gregory, you're an adult. Stop letting your mother dictate our lives. You don't need her approval for everything. His anger flared even more. If you're so unhappy, why don't you just leave? He bellowed, stepping threateningly closer. It's 2 a.m., Gregory, it's not safe, I replied, my voice trembling as I tried to reason with him. I don't care, get out, he shouted, turning away dismissively. After a brief hesitation, I began gathering my essentials, my phone, some clothes, but when I reached for my wallet, Gregory snatched it away. I earned this money, Elizabeth, you have no right to it, he declared, venom lacing his voice. A wave of panic washed over me, but then I remembered my secret backup plan. I quickly called a taxi and left without a backward glance. Gregory's angry shouts faded as the door shut behind me. I sought refuge in a nearby hotel, a temporary sanctuary. The next morning, I was up early, my mind buzzing with plans. My first stop was a small, unassuming lawyer's office. Mr. Jonathan, the lawyer, was perceptive and compassionate. He listened intently as I recounted my situation, nodding in sympathy. We'll get the divorce papers drawn up immediately. You have rights, Elizabeth, and we'll ensure they're respected, he promised with reassuring confidence. With the divorce papers in hand, I returned to the apartment Gregory and I had shared. The silence of the place contrasted sharply with the chaos of the previous night, evidenced by a discarded bottle and Gregory's snoring figure on the couch. He hadn't even made it to the bedroom. I packed swiftly, clothes, books, personal items, stuffing them into boxes and bags. The act of leaving felt both freeing and somber as I zipped up my last suitcase. Gregory stirred. Elizabeth, hey, can you grab me a beer? He mumbled, groggy and oblivious to the suitcases. Instead of a beer, I placed the divorce papers on the coffee table before him. Here's what I can offer you, I said, my voice steady and calm. Gregory blinked slowly, coming to. He picked up the papers, scanned them, and smirked dismissively. You're serious? Come on, Elizabeth, just apologize to me and my mom, promise to follow the rules, and we can forget all this. I couldn't help but let out a short, bitter laugh. No, Gregory, I'm not coming back, not now, not ever, this is goodbye. I left the apartment, the door clicking shut behind me, sealing my past away. That afternoon, I moved into my own small rented apartment. Returning to full-time work at the office, I felt rejuvenated by the familiar environment, the buzz of activity, the rhythmic clacking of keyboards, the comforting aroma of brewing coffee. I loved my job, and it was good to be back. I reconnected with friends and family, repairing relationships that had frayed during my tumultuous marriage. Over long dinners and weekend brunches, I shared laughs and stories, drawing strength from these bonds that had endured much. One late afternoon, as I was finalizing a manuscript, my phone buzzed. It was Anna, a dear friend and confidant from the city. Hey Anna, what's up? I answered, smiling at the sound of her enthusiastic voice. Elizabeth, I'm so glad I caught you. Listen, a few of us are meeting this weekend at that new cafe downtown. You have to come. It's been ages, and everyone's dying to see you. The cafe meetup was exactly what I needed, laughter, updates, and a gentle reintroduction to my social life. It felt wonderful to be among friends, sharing stories and enjoying the camaraderie I had missed. As the gathering wound down, Anna caught my arm, her presence a comforting reminder of the support I had. As I was heading out the door, Anna's voice stopped me. Hey, how are you doing, Elizabeth? Her expression was intense yet gentle. I paused, took a deep breath, and decided to share my truth. I'm getting there, Anna. It's been a rough patch, but I feel like I'm truly starting to move on now. A few months into adjusting to my new, yet familiar life, my phone buzzed while I was engrossed in a complex manuscript. The caller ID showed it was Gregory. With a sigh, I braced myself and answered, maintaining a calm tone. Hello? Elizabeth, I need to talk. Gregory's voice sounded tentative and strained. What's up, Gregory? I asked, not in the mood for small talk. I've been fired, he blurted out. Things are pretty bad financially. I was hoping. Do you think you could lend me some money? I pressed the speakerphone button, already anticipating the next part of his request. He continued hesitantly, and I was thinking, maybe we could start over. If you apologize to my mom and me, Maybe we could try again. You could help us out. I couldn't contain my laughter. Gregory, are you joking? You expect me to apologize, support you, and return to that chaos? You've abandoned your values pretty quickly, haven't you? The line went quiet. Finally, he asked, so, is that a no? Yes, Gregory, that's a definite no, I replied, still amused by the ridiculousness of his proposal. I'm doing well, and I'm not about to sacrifice my newfound freedom and happiness to revisit whatever that was. After hanging up, I shook my head in disbelief at the conversation. It reminded me how much I had evolved and the liberation I now felt. I turned back to my manuscript, a smile tugging at my lips. The thought of re-entering a relationship wasn't appealing at all. I was relishing my independence and the tranquility it brought, too much to consider anything else.